Haunted by the unknown, ESA exposes sinister images of 3i Atlas Mars, terrifying secrets revealed. The headlines screamed from every screen in Maplewood, and Sarah's heart raced. The unsettling images released by the European Space Agency flickered on her phone as she stole glances during her late shifts at the diner. Dark shapes twisted between the jagged rocks of Mars, and cryptic symbols sparkled like sinister stars. Was it just a trick of light, or was there something more? That gut-wrenching feeling gripped her tighter each time. Beware, beware. The cosmos held secrets, and they were spilling over into her quiet suburban life. Each late-night shift dragged on as the pierced quiet swallowed her. Strange sounds hummed from behind the thin walls of her cookie-cutter home. Shadows danced outside her window, flickering like phantoms. Were the lights from Carl's backyard, or was something worse lurking in the night? She wanted to ignore it, to chalk it up to exhaustion. But each day melded into the next, and whispers of fear grew loud enough to drown out all hope. Then came the whispers from neighbors. Their eyes flickered with a terror she couldn't quite place. "It's just a phase, Sarah," they'd say, brushing her off. But Carl, that well-meaning science teacher next door, stared too long at her children. Every time Mia and Ethan played in the yard, she felt Carl's gaze on their tiny, innocent forms. It sent prickles down her spine. The way he smiled, like he knew some deep, dark secret, twisted her gut. "Mom, look at our drawings!" Ethan exclaimed one afternoon, scrambling into her room. The crayon drawings scattered across the floor depicted monsters and symbols that echoed the eerie shapes she couldn't shake from her mind. Sarah felt her heart drop. This was no childhood whimsy. It was a collision of worlds, and she was terrified they were the ones caught in the crossfire. Her instincts screamed for justice, but local authorities dismissed her fears as fatigue-fueled paranoia, a single mother working too hard. "Just rest, Sarah," they said, shaking their heads, disbelieving. Were they blind to the shadow creeping across Maplewood? One evening, as she prepared for another long shift, Sarah stepped outside to find her neighbors gazing skyward. Light flickered among the stars like a dealer's hand, and tension clung to the air, a collective chill mingled with unspoken anticipation. They were waiting for something unimaginable. While the townsfolk gawked, dread pulled in her gut. She had wanted peace, but now the very fabric of her existence felt unraveling. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A scream echoed through the neighborhood as the lights flared brighter, sharper. She faced the shadowed figure's secrets wrapped in darkness, whispers crumbling around her ears. What lay behind the veil? Dread from the sky, or a man who claimed goodwill while setting his own traps? Maplewood teetered on the brink of a revelation that twisted her very notion of safety. Sarah stood at the crossroads, caught between the lurking fear of the cosmos and the more tangible terror next door. What awaited her on the other side? Only the stars, shimmering with promises and peril, could reveal that truth. As the scream ricocheted off the houses, Sarah's heart lurched. She frantically scanned the neighborhood, eyes widening with panic. The starlit sky crackled with an unnatural energy, filling the air with a tension that felt almost alive. Neighbors were frozen, their eyes fixed on the heavens, mouths agape in terror. What had broken the stillness? "Mom!" Mia tugged on Sarah's shirt, the fear in her voice unmistakable. "What is happening?" Sarah knelt, trying to mask her own fear. "It's okay, sweetie. Just stay close." But her hands trembled as she tightened her grip around Mia and Ethan. They huddled together, boxes of crayons and half-finished drawings forgotten in the backyard. The glow intensified, illuminating the faces of those gathered outside. Carl stood at the front of the crowd, expression oddly serene, while the others appeared frantic. They clutched each other, eyes darting. It was as if he held sway over them, beckoning them toward the light. She glanced at him, a chill prickled down her spine. "Look, A voice from the back shouted, breaking the spell. "It's coming down!" Sarah squinted into the smoky sky. The lights swirled like a tornado. Shadows emerged, darting between clouds, shapes all too familiar. The same sinister figures she had seen in Ethan's drawings. Panic welled, breath quickened. "We need to get inside." But her legs felt momentarily rooted to the ground. Another scream, sharper this time, cut through the air. It felt like an ice pick to the heart, freezing her instincts. A surge of dread flooded Sarah. The darkness was just above them. It was creeping closer. Carl stepped forward, an unnatural calm radiating off him. "Stay with me. It's almost here. Don't you want to see the truth?" The crowd pulsed with murmurs, a rhythmic backing track to the fear swelling inside her. One voice broke through. "What truth? What is it?" "It doesn't matter," Sarah hissed, gripping her children tighter, as if they were the only shield against this tide of madness. "We need to get inside, now." Dragging Mia and Ethan toward their home, every instinct urged her to run. The neighbors, caught in Carl's spell, began to walk toward the light, almost entranced. One by one, they ignored the danger, stepping further away from their homes. Shadows flickered, whispering in a cadence that sent chills coursing through her veins. Just before Sarah reached the doorway, a loud crack split the sky, followed by an otherworldly howl. The air trembled, taste of metal filling her mouth as she turned back. The figures emerged fully, dark and hulking against the radiant glow. Terrible shapes waving like arms, a call to madness that drew her neighbors nearer. "Mom!" Ethan screamed, tugging at her. Tears slipped from his terrified eyes, raw and bright. "Please!" They stumbled inside, slamming the door shut. Heart pounding, Sarah fumbled to lock it. The sound of feet shuffling outside made her breath hitch. The shadows whispered, chilling her to the bone. Peering through the blinds, she watched her neighbors, faces now void of any recognition. They were compelled, drawn to the beckoning darkness. "Turn on the lights," Mia cried, and against the trembling of her hands, Sarah flicked every switch in the house. The glow of their living room flickered alive, but outside, only the darkness pulsed, flickering with ominous shapes. "Mom, what's wrong with them?" Ethan's voice was raw, every syllable thick with fear. The weight of despair settled in her gut. "I don't know," she whispered, heart racing. "But we can't let them in." As they huddled together on the floor, the whispers outside grew louder, a symphony of dread. Pink light began to seep through the edges of the door, curling like smoke. The truth was out there, creeping into their lives. But was it only the neighbors at risk? Or worse, would it come for them next? The door quivered, a phantom brush against the wood. "Mom, what do we do now?" In the desperate silence, a new fear unfurled in Sarah's chest. What if the mysteries of Mars were not the only secrets lurking in the dark? What if the nightmares had always been here? Just then, a loud thud echoed against the door, and all at once, the shadows pressed in closer, a prelude to terror hovering outside. The house felt like a cocoon, but one that could tear open at any moment. Sarah pressed her back against the door, heart pounding in her ears, each beat a countdown that escalated her anxiety. The weight of the shadows outside grew heavier, the whispers morphed into voices, calling out names, eerie and haunting. She gritted her teeth to block them out. "Mom, I'm scared." Mia's voice trembled, clutching her brother tighter. "Me too, sweetheart." She stole a glance at the windows. The light pulsed, a steady heartbeat emanating from the oppressive darkness, mocking their defiance. What were they waiting for? Why aren't they coming back? Ethan's eyes reflected the glow, wide with innocence. What happened to them? The children's fear wrapped around her like barbed wire. "I don't know," we have to the words caught in her throat as another heavy thud rattled the door. It shook violently as if a massive force was testing its strength. "Sarah," a voice hissed outside, cut from the crowd. "Let us in, we've seen the truth." It's beautiful. A frigid tremor slithered down her spine. "No! Stay back!" Her legs felt wobbly, adrenaline racing in her veins. She glanced at the kitchen for any means of escape or defense. all the while keeping a careful watch on the relentless shadows outside. "Mia, Ethan," she whispered fiercely. "If they get in, you run to the basement and hide. Don't come out until I say so." Their eyes radiated fear and confusion, but also a glimmer of trust. "Mom, we don't want to leave you," Ethan pleaded, tears pooling. "I'll be right behind you," she assured, but even she wasn't convinced. The door thudded again, the sound echoing with a menacing rhythm, a drum roll for their collapse. "Sarah, it's Carl." The voice resonated deep, a low growl that sent chills through her. "You don't understand. They will come for you. You don't need to resist. Join us." The popping sound of the paint on the door sent a shock through her. "What do you mean?" she shouted, her voice a fragile bridge over the cacophony outside. "Embrace the darkness." Carl's voice twisted and slithered, blending with others in a chorus that drifted toward madness. "You will see. We are waiting for you." "Mom!" Mia cried, pointing at the window where a mist had formed, swirling and writhing. Faces materialized, their skin pale and faint, eyes black and sunken, mouths moving in harmony with the sinister melody. They were not mere neighbors anymore. They were a tide of otherworldly torment. The lights flickered, cutting to darkness and back again in a strobe of chaos. Panic surged. She grabbed the kids, shuffling them toward the kitchen. "Now!" Yet just as they reached the frame, the whispers intensified, morphing into guttural screams. The air tightened, suffocating her resolve. Shadows slink through every crevice, a void that threatened to engulf them whole. "Those are the lost," Carl howled, a terrifying serenade that echoed beyond the door. "The truth awaits. You cannot hide from what is meant to be." The barrage of sound hammered against her ears. She slammed her hands over her head, the darkness clawing at her sanity. "Mom, please! I want to go home." Ethan's sobs ripped at her heart. "Just a little longer," she whispered, feeling the ground tremble beneath their feet. Those outside were shifting, moving as one, a collective entity that could break through any barrier. The air grew thick with anticipation. "Mom, look!" Mia screamed, pointing. Sarah turned just in time to see the mist coalesce around the door handle, fingers reaching from beyond reality, curling in like lethal vines. Each pulse from the other side resonated through her bones. "Let us go." With adrenaline clawing up her throat, she shoved the kitchen door open into the dark, waiting for whatever awaited them. They had to find safety, but even as she fled, deep within her thrummed a gnawing realization. This wasn't just the town lost. Something was awakening, and it would hunt them. What lay ahead was uncertain, but it felt like an inescapable fate was dragging them into the shadows as they ran. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that the truth wasn't hidden beyond the door but waiting, hungry, just a breath away. The kitchen swallowed them whole, a grim sanctuary with its chipped counters and dim light. Shadows clawed at the edges, creeping in like unwelcome guests. Sarah's heart raced, deafening in the silence that followed. "Mom," Mia whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. The sound sent jagged spikes of fear through Sarah. She ushered the kids behind the kitchen island, empty and worn but offering some sense of protection. "Stay low and quiet," she instructed, desperate to keep her tone steady. As they crouched together, she couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in on them, like the house itself was a predator waiting for its moment. Outside, the tumult raged on. The heavy thuds against the door were now joined by a discordant chant, a symphony of madness. Sarah had bounced around the walls, hitting her like fists. "What do they want?" Ethan's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She shook her head. "I don't know, buddy. But we can't let them in." Panic clouded her vision. Her thoughts edged toward darkness, a haunting reflection of what was outside. Did they want her? Or were they after the children? As if sensing her thoughts, the ground tremored beneath them. A chilling grin tore across Sarah's face as she stifled a scream. What if this was just the beginning? Thick shadows writhed along the floor, slipping like quicksilver under the kitchen cabinets. Then Mia squeaked, "Mom! Look!" Sarah's heart clutched. The fridge's metal facade glinted eerily, revealing fleeting images. Faces, just like the ones outside, skittered in and out of view. People she recognized, neighbors, friends, all trapped in expressions of horror, mouths gasping silently. They were reaching for something, or someone. "Mia, don't look!" Sarah snapped, but it was too late. "Why are they?" Mia's voice trembled, her wide eyes pinned to the refrigerator. The glow from it painted their faces with ghostly light. "Focus on me!" Sarah shouted, grasping her children's shoulders. "We need to get out of here." But every instinct screamed that there was nowhere to hide. The house, with its walls like lungs, inhaled deeply as the chorus of whispers grew louder. Join us, it melded into a rhythmic chant, throbbing in time with the pulsing darkness outside. "Over there." Mia pointed toward the back door, behind a pile of old boxes and broken furniture. "Do you think we can make it?" Ethan's voice cracked, the innocence of a frightened child weighing heavily on him. "We have to try," Sarah breathed. Every moment spent here felt like sand slipping through an hourglass. The need to escape outweighed her fear, a primal drive that took over. "On 3 we run, okay?" They nodded, a silent pact sealed in terror. 1, 2 outside, the door buckled, the shout of 1,000 voices merged into a single roar. 3. They bolted. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as they pushed through the boxes, tearing into the dim light beyond. The back door loomed ahead, and she reached for the handle. It was cold. "Mom, they're coming!" Ethan shrieked, a sound that pounded against her skull. With strength she didn't know she possessed, she threw the door open. The night exploded into view, a chaotic swirl of shadows that pulsed like a living thing. It beckoned. "Run!" Sarah screamed, shoving the kids outside as she stepped into the open space. But before they could make a single move, the ground beneath them shifted. The shadows congealed into forms, figures lost, faces glistening with an otherworldly light, their mouths moving in unison, whispering secrets that clawed at her mind. Terror gripped her throat as the truth hit hard. It was more than just desperation out there. They weren't merely lost. They were a part of something far more sinister. "Mom!" Mia shouted, tugging at her hand. And then Sarah saw the reflecting glint in Ethan's eyes, the echo of dread mirrored back at her. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, its face eerily familiar, yet distorted by madness, a welcoming smile that chilled her to the bone. "Welcome home, Sarah." The realization crashed over her like a wave, each cold drop seeping deeper into her skin. The truth was not just in the shadows, it was woven into the fabric of their reality. What awaited them beyond that night? Would they succumb like the others? As they stumbled backward, the shadows lunged forward, whispering sweet promises into her ears, and somewhere in the thickness of that darkness, a chilling thought flickered: the hunt had only just begun. The shadows surged closer, twisting and writhing around Sarah and her children. The air thickened with despair, each breath tasting of fear. The familiar figure at the front moved through the darkness, its features sharper now, the smile a grotesque mask that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Mom, please!" Ethan whimpered, clutching Mia tightly. Their small bodies trembled together, a united front against the encroaching terror. "What do we do?" A guttural laugh echoed from the figure. "You can't escape, Sarah. You belong to us now." It stretched its arms wide, beckoning as if to embrace their fate. The voice gained through the air, oozing with familiarity and dread. Every word was a needle, pricking at the fragmented pieces of her mind. Without thinking, Sarah snatched Mia's hand, her other hand searching for Ethan's. Together, they turned to flee deeper into the engulfing night, away from the house that now felt as if it had teeth. "Stay close," she shouted, and the urgency propelled them forward. They ran, not towards safety, but into the unknown. The ground quaked beneath their feet, shifting in rhythm with the whispers. Join us," came the incessant chanting, pulling at the threads of sanity she fought to maintain. Every shadow threatened to devour them, every gust of wind felt like icy fingers grazing her skin. The glow of the moon was swallowed by dark clouds, cloaking them in oppressive gloom. Panic licked at the back of her throat. What had happened to her once peaceful neighborhood? How had it turned into this twisted hell? "Mom! Look!" Mia pointed toward the tree line, where shadows melded with the trunks, seeming almost alive. The clarity in her voice cut through the chaos. But before Sarah could decide on a course of action, a sudden crack echoed in the air. The sound of splintering wood followed, and behind them, the back door of their house splintered open. A horde poured out, swarming like locust neighbors twisted into grotesque parodies of themselves, their eyes hollow and wild. "Run!" Sarah screamed again. This time, her voice cracked with pure desperation. They stumbled forward, their feet slipping on the wet grass, until with a jolt, they crossed into the thicket that bordered their yard. The shadows followed, but now they held a different form, tangible figures, no longer mere visions. Sarah's heart jerked violently as one of the figures caught up with them, its hand grazing the back of Ethan's neck. An electric shock rocketed through her. "Let him go!" Her voice boomed, fierce and protective. She spun, kicking out at the figure, panic sharpening her reflexes. It faltered, but the momentary victory filled her with only dread. Sarah had hissed through gritted teeth, a mask of familiarity smoothed against an unknown horror. "You can't resist what you are destined for. They all want you back, don't you see?" She gasped, realizing the truth. It was her old friend Alex, lost for years to some unknown fate. The face that had once held laughter was now stripped of humanity, showing only despair and madness. "Alex," she managed, her voice trembling. "Is that really you?" With a guttural roar, he lunged forward. Time snapped back. "Mom!" Mia's voice yanked her back to the moment. They were surrounded. The shadows thickened, swallowing sound and light, and the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony that rattled her bones. Their backs pressed against the cool bark of a tree, an ancient sentinel that offered them no comfort. "What now?" Ethan choked, wide eyes mirroring the horror that swam in Sarah's own. And then, from the depths of the darkness, she sensed something else forming a deeper shadow, a figure that loomed larger than the ones before. A heartbeat of dread settled in her chest, pushing her to the point of breaking. "What do you want from us?" she cried, the fear spilling over into the night air. The whispers paused, and a chilling silence fell like a shroud. In that breath of stillness, the new figure stepped forward, silhouetted against the shadows with an aura of power. "Your choice awaits, Sarah," it murmured. To join them or to be free. As it extended a hand, the weight of its promise sent her blood turning cold. Would they survive the night, or would they be dragged into the depths of whatever evil had ensnared their lives? In a world split between light and shadow, her heart raced, every option darkening with every terrifying heartbeat. Would she have the strength to choose freedom, or would they all succumb to the darkness? The figure loomed larger, its presence suffocating. Darkness pulled around it like a living entity, twisting and coiling, ready to slither its way into their hearts. Sarah felt the air thicken, the once familiar sounds of the night now replaced by an oppressive silence. She clutched Mia and Ethan tighter, fear coursing through her veins. "Mom!" Ethan's voice trembled. "What is it?" "I don't know," she whispered, refusing to look away from the shadow. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet her body felt paralyzed. The figure regarded her with eyes that glinted like shards of glass. "Your choice is not merely yours," it spoke softly, its voice like silk wrapped around knives. "You are bound by blood and by fate." Mia whimpered against her side, sensing the danger that enveloped them. "Please, Mom. We need to leave." "Where can we go?" Sarah spat, anger cutting through the fear. There's nowhere left. Their backs pressed against the ancient tree, the bark rough and unyielding, a stark contrast to the softness of her children beside her. Shadows writhed beneath the twisted roots, as if hungry for any warmth they could consume. The whispers returned, taunting her, "Join us, become one forever." Sudden clarity cut through the haze. Sarah remembered the stories her grandmother had told her as a child, the tales of shadows that followed families through generations, the darkness that craved companionship. "Your grandmother was foolish to deny her calling," the figure crooned, drifting closer, its breath cold against her cheek. She ran, but oh, how she longed to join us. "You feel it too, don't you?" A sickening realization turned in her stomach. Had her grandmother faced the same choice? I want to join you. Sarah spat defiantly, though she felt the walls of her mind begin to shake. You don't own me. You don't own my children. The figure paused, cocking its head with a hint of amusement. Not yet, but you will. They all do in the end. With a swift movement, it reached towards Sarah, fingers unfurling like dead branches. The shadows coiled in anticipation, ready to strike. Mom! Ethan yelled, throwing his small body in front of her, his arms flailing as if they could offer protection. Get back! No! Ethan! Panic surged through Sarah, erupting in her chest like a firestorm. She shoved him aside instinctively, throwing herself and Mia away from the oncoming threat. A gust of wind erupted, scattering the shadows momentarily. You cannot escape! The figure roared, the ground trembling beneath them. The air crackled with a furious energy, and the darkened world flickered for just a moment, revealing glimpses of twisted faces beyond the veil. Keep running! Sarah shouted, yanking at Mia's hand. They dashed deeper into the labyrinth of trees, every step weighted down by despair. Behind them, the shadows crashed together, howling in fury at the disruption. Branches scratched at her arms, the tormented whispers following close behind. You can't run from your destiny, Sarah! They cried, blending together like a horrifying symphony. They burst into a small clearing. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light on the ground. It felt like a sanctuary, but the darkness was hungry, its tendrils creeping at the edges. Look! Mia pointed, and Sarah turned. At the center of the clearing stood an old stone well, its surface slick with moisture. They want you to join them, the voice echoed through the air, slinking around them. But this could save you. You might find the truth down there. Terror clawed its way back into Sarah's throat. What truth? What will it cost? Only that which you are willing to give for freedom. It was a choice powerful and terrifying. Before she could react, shadows lunged from the trees, merging into a storm that surrounded them. With her heart hammering in her chest, Sarah realized she had to act. She would have to choose: dive into the dark, or confront the shadow and face what awaited. Go! She shouted to her children. Run to the well! But as they turned, the well began to tremble. Would the depths hold the salvation she sought, or would the darkness engulf them all? Time felt suspended, the choice hanging like an executioner's blade. The ground rumbled again, the well groaning as an unseen force pulsed beneath it. Sarah's heart raced, the thrumming of fear mingled with desperation. Ethan clutched her leg, eyes wide with terror, while Mia tugged at her hand, pulling her toward the darkness. Mom, please! Ethan begged, his voice cracking. The shadows encroached, hungry tendrils reaching toward them, grasping and clawing as they whispered promises of safety, of understanding. Hold on to each other, Sarah commanded, forcing her voice to steady. She could feel the tendrils caressing her skin, cold and sharp, as if willing her to succumb. The air felt electric, charged with a presence that wouldn't let them go. We'll get through this. In an instant, they were no longer just in a clearing, they were trapped in an abyss of despair. The trees loomed taller, their branches like skeletal hands ready to snatch them away. Shadows flickered, revealing fleeting images of faces tormented and twisted in pain. Look! Mia suddenly yelled, pointing toward the well. At first, all Sarah saw was darkness. But then, she began to discern shapes, a swirling mass of anguished souls, pleading and screaming, their voices lost in the cacophony of the shadows. They danced in torment, their eyes filled with a yearning that mirrored the figure's sinister grin. It's a trap! Sarah screamed, shaking her head in disbelief. No! But the shadows whispered again, slick and smooth. Dare to look into the depths. Find the truth of your family. Only one can escape this fate. Fear sank its teeth into her heart. What truth? What price would she pay? The figure's voice slithered back into her mind, echoing her grandmother's fate. Mom! We need to jump! Ethan shouted, and for a brief moment, Sarah saw his desperation reflected in Mia's wide eyes. We can't let it take us. A part of her screamed to flee, to run from the truth that could bind them all. But the well stood before them, the only ounce of hope in a world suffocating beneath the weight of despair. With one push from behind, the voices clamored louder, urging her to cast aside all caution. "I can't. Not without you." Sarah felt the weight of her children's fear pressing into her chest. "Do it!" Ethan cried, tears streaming down his face. "Do it for us. We can't let it have you." Before she could process his words, the shadows lunged. Mia's grip slipped from her fingers. "Mom!" Time warped and stretched. In that instant, the darkness breached the space like a tidal wave. Sarah's instincts kicked in, and she leaped, her body propelled by a mother's last resolve. They all fell forward, into the well, the yawning mouth of the abyss, the world around them spiraling into a blinding forgetfulness. Then silence. There was no sound, no flickering light, only the sensation of falling into a vast emptiness. The children, panic tugged at her as darkness swallowed them whole. Suddenly, a flash. A light flickered for a mere moment, revealing glimpses of a haunting past memory she had buried deep, a childhood spent in fear, her grandmother's warnings, her own birthright clawing its way to the surface. It all unspooled ahead of her like a film, each frame revealing bitter truths and lost echoes, truths she never wanted to confront, but had to. A heartbeat trembled in her chest. They were not alone in this void. Sarah, a voice whispered, a familiar tone breathed in the same shadows that tormented them. "Who are you?" She shouted into the darkness, her voice echoing back, mocking her. "Your guide and your judge," it replied, the words wrapping around her like a noose. "Choose wisely now, for what's lost can never return." The tremors of dread seeped into her very core. Was this the end? Or just the beginning? In that moment, a seed of realization settled in her mind. The true terror was only just beginning. What awaited them in the depths? Would they find freedom, or would the shadows consume them forever? The shadows stirred and beckoned, the choice ahead shrouded in darkness. Would they be saved or damned? The stillness was suffocating, wrapped around Sarah like a shroud. The void was not just dark, it felt alive, pulsating with an energy that twisted inside her mind. Ethan and Mia, where were they? Panic clawed at her throat. A frigid breeze swept through the darkness, carrying whispers that slid against her skin, chilling her to the bone. "Ethan!" she called out, her voice raspy and desperate. "Mia!" Silence followed, thick and mocking. She was alone, or was she? The shadows answered, their laughter echoing hollowly around her. "Eternal darkness awaits," a voice hissed, slithering through the emptiness. "Shut up!" she screamed, shaking her head to clear the fog that clung to her thoughts. Then, as if summoned by her rage, a flicker of light pierced the blackness. It was fleeting, but enough to unveil a scene. A grotesque tableau formed from the very shadows that threatened to engulf her. She gasped as she recognized the faces, twisted, tormented, and familiar. They weren't just specters, they were memories. Her grandmother's voice rang sharp and clear, echoing words that had haunted her childhood. "The curse is passed on, Sarah. You must break it before it consumes you." "No!" She pressed her palms against her ears, trying to drown out the memories. The shadows danced, each flicker further unveiling a chain of suffering that tied her to this place. "Find us, Sarah," the voices whispered, as if calling from the depths of an abyss she had tried to forget. "Where are my kids?" she yelled, refusing to submit to the old fears. "Show me." With her command, the shadows parted momentarily, revealing a grotesque vision. Ethan and Mia were there, suspended in midair, their faces pale and strained. They were surrounded by a swirling mass of darkness, contorted and writhing, each tendril grasping at them like an ancient beast about to devour its prey. "No!" she shouted again, straining against waves of despair crashing against her will. Sarah felt the past clawing at her as she fought. Then, in a moment of clarity, she remembered the stories, the family tales that sounded absurd but held truths. The well contained the darkness, the curse that snared generations. To save her children, she had to face it. "Enough!" she screamed, stepping forward into the darkness, her heart hammering in her chest. "I choose to break the cycle." The shadows recoiled, hissing like angry serpents. Fate cannot be changed, the voice growled, but Sarah was resolute. Watch me, she shouted, channeling every ounce of fury and love she had for her children. There was a blinding flash, and the air crackled. A surge of energy ignited within her as the shadows faltered, unsure, shifting uneasily like a nest of vipers disturbed. Before her, the swirling darkness began to form a pathway shimmering briefly in soft shades of blue, like an ethereal bridge guiding her forward. Go, the voice urged, as if sensing her resolve. Follow the light or be lost forever. Heart pounding, Sarah sprinted towards the glimmering path. She could see Ethan and Mia ahead, still trapped but shifting, glimmers of hope dancing within their eyes. As she reached out to them, she could feel a tugging force pulling her back, fighting her every step. No! She roared, grasping the shimmering air, feeling the surge flow through her palms. With every ounce of will, she wrenched it back and shouted, "You will not take my family." The shadows writhed, battling against her strength, a cacophony of howls rising in an angry crescendo. But something shifted. A spark of light ignited within the darkness, illuminating the torment flowing through it. Mia's voice broke through the chaos. "Mom, please." Time slowed as Sarah reached for her children, the abyss stretching just enough for hope to flow through. Would she break the curse that threatened to drag them all into despair? The darkness surged again, furious and relentless. What awaited them on this precipice could either be salvation or the depths of doom. "Hold on, I'm coming," she cried, pushing forward. The air crackled with energy, and as she reached for them, a choice loomed ahead. Cloaked in shadow and desperate uncertainty. Could they escape, or was this their final stand against the encroaching darkness? The answer rattled the very foundation of her soul, echoing back from the depths, "Choose wisely." The light pulsed, soft and inviting, but an icy dread gripped Sarah's heart. She pushed herself forward, each step pulling her deeper into the swirling chaos around her. Ethan and Mia hung just beyond reach, their eyes wide with fear, their bodies tethered in the suffocating darkness. "Just a little closer," she urged, as the shadows roared in protest. They whipped around her like furious serpents, seeking to drag her back into the depths. A cold sweat dripped down her spine. The voices shrieked now, a cacophony of anger rising over the growling winds. "Leave them, Sarah. Embrace the darkness." "No!" she screamed, defiance shooting through her blood. She felt her love for her children radiate like a beacon, cutting through the despair that choked her. Each flicker of hope was a battle cry. "I want to abandon them," her voice echoed, reverberating through the crushing void. The shadows recoiled momentarily, confused by the intensity of her will. It was her moment. She stretched her hands toward Ethan and Mia, and her fingertips brushed against their outstretched palms. Suddenly, there was a violent tug, an unseen force pulling her back as if the darkness was a living entity, angry and relentless. "Fight it!" her mind screamed. In that instant, the air crackled with energy. The beam of light surged brighter, enveloping them in its embrace, pushing back against the consuming shadows. The shadows writhed, hissing and puffing like a furnace at maximum heat, desperate to reclaim their prize. "Don't let go!" Sarah shouted, squeezing their hands tightly, feeling their warmth infuse her body. Their connection was a shield, a lifeline crafted in pure love. But the darkness was cunning. It twisted around them, forming visions that danced just at the edge of perception. She saw faces distorted, terrified faces from her past, the echoes of those who had fallen to the curse. They reached out with empty hands, mouths agape in soundless screams. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Stay focused. Stay with me," she urged her children. Ethan's voice broke through the fog. "Mom, the well. You need to find the well." The words pierced through the chaos. The well. The ancient well that contained the curse and its power. But where? The darkness shrieked louder, anger boiling over, and the ground beneath her trembled as cool mist spiraled around her like a noose. "Think!" she shouted, the urgency propelling her mind into overdrive. The stories, the warnings. The way the curse was just about darkness. but binding ties that entwined itself around the heart of the family. Then, she remembered. The old oak tree. She gasped. It points the way. The shadows shrieked as she channeled her focus towards the incorporeal tree, a beacon long thought extinguished in her memory, igniting her hope anew. We can break free, she screamed, thrusting her hand forward as if reaching for the roots of that tree buried deep beneath the nightmare. With a surge of newfound strength, they lurched forward, but the darkness lashed out, an inky tendril coiling around Mia's wrist. "Mom!" she cried, terror painting her face. "Hold on," Sarah bellowed, her heart racing. The weight of generations pressed in on them, the curse clawing at her resolve. "Faster," Ethan urged, the shadows closing in, their chilling grip tightening as despair threatened to swallow them whole again. Just as they began to break away from the chokehold of despair, a sound that turned blood to ice filled the air, a cackle that resonated deep within the shadows. "You think you can break it? The curse hungers for your pain, and it always wins." Sarah's breath quickened at the revelation. Shadows swirled like a storm, the laughter echoing, taunting, and relentless. The path before them dimmed. "No!" Sarah roared, pushing against the tide, desperation clawing at her throat. "I will win! We will win!" But even as she shouted, doubt crept in, swirling amid the chaos. How much love could drown the darkness? How much hope remained? Suddenly, everything went cold. The air thickened, and reality warped. Visions of her own past sins flooded in guilt. Clawing and scratching, mocking her attempts. Time twisted. The darkness lurched, closing the distance. Could she truly break the curse? Or was this the beginning of their end? "Sarah!" Mia's voice trembled, snatching her from despair. "Don't let it take us." Then a soft glow appeared in the haze, flickering uncertainly, as if promising salvation, a path unseen. "Follow me," the voice beckoned, neither familiar nor strange, but rich with possibility. Could this light be their salvation? Would Sarah have the courage to face whatever lay ahead, or would the curse consume them all in its suffocating grasp? With a final tear in her heart, she plunged ahead, heart racing, breath shallow into the unknown. A warm light enveloped Sarah, Mia, and Ethan as they stumbled into the clearing, trembling with fear and urgency. For the first time, the oppressive shadows receded, revealing the ancient oak tree looming majestically beside the gnarled well. The familiar grip of terror slacked, replaced with a sense of intertwined possibilities. "Mom, the well! We need to jump!" Ethan's voice was urgent, threading through the fabric of the moment. The whispers returned, swirling on the edges of their minds, shadows clawing at the warmth they found. "Join us, you cannot escape." "No!" Sarah screamed, pulling her children close. "We can't let them win. Hold my hand." Mia's voice trembled, eyes wide with newfound determination. Each connection formed a trio, a living shield of love against the darkness. The shadows hissed softly, retreating to the edges of their consciousness. "You think love can save you?" With every ounce of strength, Sarah stepped forward, drawing Ethan and Mia with her, right to the precipice. "I want to lose you," she yelled. The weight of the curse loomed heavy, but as she glanced at the jagged stones that lined the well, a flicker of hope sparked. If they could confront the horror of the shadows together, perhaps they could break the cycle. "This ends now," she declared. Ethan and Mia nodded, hearts pounding in sync with their mother's fierce resolve. Unwavering, they approached the well, the light above casting intricate shadows against its stone face. As they gazed into the deep chasm, memories surged, flashes of childhood laughter, shadows of fears once known, pain interwoven with love. "It's time!" Sarah shouted, determination surging. With a united leap, they jumped into the well, hearts entwined, voices mingling so tight that the shadows recoiled, shrieking in fury as darkness and light collided. The bottom rushed up to meet them, a mixture of hope and fear. Then, silence enveloped them. They landed softly, the air crackling with energy. Illumination flooded the space, revealing visions of the generations that had come before, whispers of the past echoing hauntingly, the faces of those who had succumbed, and yet, those who had escaped. each story built upon the last, woven together, creating a tapestry rich with both sorrow and strength. "Look, Mom!" Mia pointed. In the center, a glowing orb pulsated with vibrant colors, rippling like a heartbeat. It radiated warmth, seemed to draw them closer. "What is it?" Ethan whispered, awe in his voice. "I think it's the truth we seek," Sarah replied, a surge of resolve surging through her blood. "Together, we can break this curse." They stepped nearer, their hearts synchronized, reaching for the light. "We must speak the truth, the love we've held through all this darkness," Sarah said, locking eyes with her children. "Us against them," Ethan proclaimed, setting the tone of unity. "We'll not let the shadows take us." With their hands intertwined, Sarah's heart swelled, a concoction of courage, fear, and love weaving tightly. "I love you both, and no darkness can take us from each other," she declared. The orb pulsed, vibrating with their words, glowing brighter against the backdrop of the shadows lurking just beyond. The darkness twisted, attempting to close in, but the light surged, pushing back against despair's grasp. "Stay together," Sarah urged. "We push through this." With every heartbeat, their strength grew, battling back centuries of entrapment. The shadows howled, swirling like a tempest against the brilliance. The pale faces of their ancestors lingered for a moment, nodding, combined strength fighting against the inevitable loss. Then, with a final, unified breath, they shouted, "We are stronger than you." The light exploded, cascading around them in a vibrant burst. The darkness mingled and shrieked, folding backward, lost in the brilliance of what they had unleashed. Searing warmth enveloped them, relief flooding their senses. Ethereal laughter echoed as they felt the chains of entrapment break, bursting away like shards of ice in the sunlight. As the burst of light faded, they found themselves outside the well again, back in the clearing beneath the magnificent oak. The night sky shimmered with the glow of countless stars, the shadows lying almost dormant, silent, the oppressive presence reduced. "Mom?" Ethan's voice trembled, fear woven with disbelief. "I think we did it," Sarah whispered, feeling the weight lift. The past miseries fell away, each breath easier than the last. Mia's eyes sparkled. "We're free?" Tears of relief brimming, Sarah swept her children into her arms, the shadows now retreating into their rightful place, a distance of freedom carved by their love. "Yes, we're free." Behind them, the well shimmered softly, a reminder of the battles they'd fought, the connection forged in darkness. Together, they had woven a new narrative, one of hope, light, and unity. As they walked back toward their home, laughter filled the air, and for the first time in a long while, the shadows lay safe, contained, fading into the beauty of the night. Finally, Maplewood felt like home again, peaceful and healing, woven together under the expanse of sky. But did the darkness retreat forever? Could its echoes ever truly fade, or did it wait, lurking just at the edges? Only time would tell. But for now, they were free. Don't let the adventure end here. You need to subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to help feed the algorithm, and keep this amazing content coming. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the conclusion. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Show your support, because this is the moment